you can attack. Ah! That was pretty good. But now it's my turn to attack. Ah! Hey! What are you doing? Ow! Ah!
Charmander, you're supposed to take turns attacking.
Screw that! This is a fight! And I want to win! Now hand me that shiv over there.
But Charmander...
Hand me the shiv!
No! Okay, wait! You guys win! I surrender! Caterpie fainted! Caterpie fainted!
Know your place, worm. Prepare yourself. Damn Saiyan.
When was the first time that you got into Pokemon? Do you remember? If you want to share, let me know in the comment section below your Pokemon story. So I remember this memory like it was yesterday, and I remember walking out onto that playground and I wanted to play tag, and we used to play this version of tag on the jungle gym, where the jungle gym was base, and so you could jump on the jungle gym and you wouldn't be able to get tagged. And for some reason this made it more fun, even though a lot of kids just jumped on the jungle gym right before they got tagged, so the game would never really conclude. But it was still fun nonetheless. We also played toilet tag, which don't even get me started on toilet tag. Anyway, this day my friends were not playing tag. They had posted up on the only bench in the playground, and they were playing with some playing cards. And I walked up and I asked them, "What are you guys doing?" And my friend handed me this card and said, "We're playing Pokemon." And when I grabbed this card, I still remember all the feelings that I had when I first saw it, how it made me want to see what the rest of them looked like. The artwork for the original Pokemon cards looked very much like paintings, so they had this sort of surreal look to them. They looked realistic in some aspects, and sometimes they didn't. And this card was a holographic Charizard, and I remember looking at it and thinking, I need my mom to get me this as soon as possible. And finally, my mom gave in and went and bought me several packs of Pokemon cards. Now, I don't remember which cards I had, but I do remember trading with the kids on the playground for that entire year and never learning the game. Till this day, I have no idea how to play the trading card game for Pokemon. My son has a whole bunch of Pokemon cards. He knows more about playing the card game than I do. We try to sit down and he tried to teach me how to play the game, and I still did not get it. But for some reason, it was just fun not to get it. It was more fun to collect them, and I wanted to catch them all. I wanted to have all the Pokemon cards, and this started my craze for Pokemon cards that has spanned up till now, really, but it was at its peak back when I was in elementary school. This video is sort of a spiritual follow-up to my How Yu-Gi-Oh! Cucked Dragon Ball video, where I give you guys a story time on my love for Yu-Gi-Oh! And how it changed my life, how I got involved in it, and how it has been important to me since I've gotten involved in it. And I wanted to do the same thing for Pokemon because I referenced Pokemon in that video. So if you haven't seen that video, go ahead, hit that pause button, and I'm gonna have a link to that video in the description below and the top comment. Go ahead and click that video and then come back. It's a good watch. There are a lot of badges of honor that kids that grew up in the 90s can wear up until now, because shows, activities, fandoms that were born in the 90s or the early 2000s, they are still around today. And there is no bigger a badge of honor for a generation than Pokemon. This is still going on. It's still a worldwide phenomenon years later, and at that moment in time, mid-90s, 1995, I want to say, 1996. Whenever I was in 3rd grade, everywhere you looked, Pokemon was there. And when I was growing up around this time period, I got into Pokemon through the trading card game. And again, I didn't know how to play it. There was no TV show, nothing like that. It just was something that was cool and fun, and something that was unique to that era. As I reached the end of that school year, my father got me my first ever Game Boy. It was a Game Boy Color. I had it for many, many years afterward, until recently, where it's gone. But as long as I did very well during the school year and I got good grades, my father would get me a gift, and this was the one thing that I wanted over anything. And I remember I could not choose whether I wanted Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue, because that was really the only reason that I was getting a Game Boy Color. Ultimately, of course, like everybody knows, you go with Red. And I must have played Pokemon Red at least 3 times back to back. I could not get enough of that game. And I honestly thought that that was the peak of Pokemon for me. I thought that as the new year came out, I was going to be getting involved into newer things. And then this happened. The Pokemon anime had me hooked from the first ever episode. Something about the synergy between Ash and Pikachu, about having one of the Pokemon that you've been catching and training your entire life in the video game just walk around with you and reject its Pokeball was pretty badass at the time. And yeah, the first anime I ever watched was Pokemon. It got me into anime because it was sort of your gateway anime. I started watching Digimon after that, Dragon Ball, Yu-Gi-Oh!, whole bunch of other anime. And just like Dragon Ball and Yu-Gi-Oh! After it, my mom got me the video cassettes, so I would watch certain episodes a little bit too many times, like that Ditto episode where the Ditto can't fully transform into the Pokemon that he's trying to mimic because he just keeps that same face. I must have watched that thing like at least 10-15 times. I watched Pokemon, the first movie, in the movie theaters. I watched the second and third movie, which weren't as good, but I watched all 3 of those in the theaters at the time of release. And I gotta say, Pokemon the first movie for me blew it out of the water because it took something that was so fun and laid back and put it in such a serious mode. I mean, those Mewtwo scenes, to this day, Mewtwo is by far my favorite Pokemon out there, and that first movie, that is the reason why. I used to play an imaginary Pokemon game with my friends around the neighborhood where we would pretend to have little tiny Pokeballs on our belts and we would fight each other with imaginary Pokemon. I know, sounds badass and awesome. It was fantastic. I felt like a total G after several matches just annihilating my friends. I mean, to have an imagination like you did back then, whew. You could really imagine anything and it would come right to life. Getting back to it, on Halloween, I remember my friend gave me Pikachu, the yellow version where you basically play the same game, but Pikachu is following around you. And even though I had played the same game several times at this point in both red and blue, something about playing with Pikachu following around you made the game even more exciting. I don't know why, but I played that. Right after that, I remember vividly loving Gold and Silver. Those were the first 2 ones that I think I liked them even more than Red and Blue because they had so much more Pokemon. The animation and the graphics were slightly better than the original, but they were noticeably better. The story was better, the character designs was better. For me, there were legendary Pokemon that actually felt like they were part of the collection process. I mean, Red and Blue basically had either Charizard or Blastoise, whatever Pokemon you started out with as the cover. These were the first ones to have legendary Pokemon on the cover of the games that you could at some point capture, and this has been a trend that has been going through every Pokemon iteration. Like, I'll never forget capturing Ho-Oh, I'll never forget capturing Lugia, chasing around the legendary dogs, just trying to capture them. I'll never forget the Unknowns and how annoying they were. I mean, those 2 games, for some reason, I remember them even more than Red and Blue. I never had Pokemon Stadium, but my next door neighbor did, and that was basically what I would have imagined actually playing the imaginary Pokemon game in real life. That's how I would imagine it would look. And later down the line, or a few years ago, they would take this sort of same concept where you can kind of have these 3D Pokemon look like they were right in front of you with Pokemon Go. But I loved Pokemon Stadium, and the one game that I loved even more than Pokemon Stadium, and I think it's probably the best Pokemon game out there that's not part of the main continuity of Pokemon games that were Red, Blue, Green, Sapphire, all those, is Pokemon Snap. I played Pokemon Snap religiously. I was always after not only the secret Easter eggs or the secret pictures, but just getting the best picture of each Pokemon. It was my drive, my single goal for that game. And man, I had some good pictures in that game, and I just thought it was the best non-action game at the time. I was only strictly playing action-styled games. I was really just playing games that you could fight, but with Pokemon Snap, it just bred everything about Pokemon out of me into the game, and basically my love for Pokemon is what made me play the game as religiously as I played it. And I'm honestly sad to say that Pokemon Crystal was the last Pokemon game that I played on any sort of Game Boy. After that, I was really into, well, what was it, 2000, 2001, around that time period. And so I was heavily into Yu-Gi-Oh at that time, as you know, this video explains. So I didn't really have time to delve deeper into Pokemon, and my drive for Pokemon really started to dry up around that time period. I stopped playing the games. I stopped watching the show because at that point Ash had already lost Brock and Misty, and we had new characters that were coming up, and I felt like I was a little bit too old to watch Pokemon. I was heavily invested in anime that was on Toonami that wasn't Pokemon. So after all that, I would say I spent a decade of not doing anything Pokemon related at all until there was something magical in the summer that Pokemon Go dropped. Because I was outside that summer more times in my adult life than I can remember. Since I was probably a teenager in high school, I was running around everywhere trying to catch Pokemon. Me and my wife, huge groups of friends. We were going to parks and hotspots that had the gyms and really good Pokemon pop-ups, and you would go there and there was a lot of people there, and one person would call it a Pokemon, everybody would rush to that spot, and most of the people there were around my age group. And I would imagine a lot of them, they grew up with the original Pokemon. So more than likely when Pokemon Go first dropped, it really hit them in a nostalgic nerve. Just like me, Pokemon Go brought every single great aspect from those days when you were a kid, trading Pokemon cards, hanging out with your friends, talking about Pokemon, playing Pokemon Stadium, Snap, any of the Pokemon games with your friends. It took all that and almost made you like a trainer outside with your friends catching Pokemon, and it was really, really fun for a short time. Again, for me, it only lasted that summer. I still have the game because I have a lot of Pokemon in there, so I don't have the heart to delete it. And sometimes here and there I'll capture a Pokemon just for shits and giggles, but that summer, again, it was a lot of fun. And I know the game sort of has fallen off a lot of people's radar, but give it a go. There's a lot of new Pokemon on there, and they have new features and capabilities that I think you guys would like. But that really invigorated me to enjoy Pokemon once more, and as of right now, I've actually been playing Pokemon Let's Go a lot, even more than my kids have been playing with it, and I think it's because it's basically the original Pokemon just remade on the Switch. My son's got Pokemon Sun and Moon. More than likely I'll make a character on that as soon as I'm done with Let's Go and play that till completion, and then Sword and Shield come out later down the line, and you know I'm gonna get that. Go Team Score Bunny. And with Detective Pikachu hitting the theaters soon, it's a great time to be a old Pokemon fan. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Fergon on DeviantArt, whose renditions of Pikachu Jiren and Pikachu Master Ultra Instinct Goku were basically the inspiration to make a video like this, and I have to give them a huge well-deserved shout out. They have a ton of Pikachu renditions of your favorite anime, comic book, or just plain cartoon characters, so make sure you go ahead and check out the DeviantArt page in the description below. This is going to be Blackscape signing off. Take care, guys.